Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat, we learn Parashat Kora. Who was Korah? He was a prominent figure from the tribe of Levi, one of the leaders of the people of Israel, and he challenged Moses regarding his leadership in Aaron's election to priesthood. Our weekly portion describes a rebellion by Korah and 250 of his men against Moses and Aaron. Korah and his men actually accused Moses and Aaron of appointing themselves to their positions. And now you also want to lord it over us. They also claim that Moses and Aaron used their status for personal pleasure. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly? Korah's argument was that we're all equal. We're all holy. We're all the same. This word, equality, is more relevant today than ever. Today, we're fighting for equality. Our social life starts in the kindergarten, where everyone is equal. We sing the same songs and play the same games. In my daughter's kindergarten, they had a sports day. There were no winners. Everyone got a medal. Everyone is equal. Everyone gets first place. Life goes on to the first grade, where we are all crammed into a square classroom for 12 years, where our only common denominator is our date of birth. Our interests, our talents, or even our personalities are squeezed into a cookie-cutter pattern. The children even wear the same uniform. There's no way to stand out. At some point, we became convinced that we were all equal. As a Passover Haggadah says, we all came out of Egypt. We all crossed the sea together. Together, we stood facing Mount Sinai. We accepted the Torah together. We're all equally responsible for the Torah. But can we ignore the fact that Moses is the greatest prophet? The concluding verses of the Torah are, "Since then no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who did all these signs and wonders the Lord sent them to do in Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his officials, and to the whole land, for no one has ever shown the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel." And then we say the words chazak chazak v'nitchazek to conclude the Torah. Moses is the greatest of the prophets. And Yeshua is not only a prophet, he is much more than a prophet. Yeshua is the embodiment of salvation. Yeshua is the Messiah. He is the subject of all the prophecies of Moses. And all the other prophets, all the prophets prophesied about Yeshua. Returning to Moses, can we or should we sacrifice the uniqueness of Moses or of any one of us on the altar of equality? Within the family, you can find everything except for equality. Inequality between parents and children, between the firstborn and the lastborn, between the genders and various ages. Everyone has a unique place, a unique role, and unique rights. We wouldn't get far if we were all equal, because we all need each other to be different. We have differences in talents and abilities. The architect needs an engineer, who needs a contractor, who needs an electrician and a plumber, who needs a builder, who needs a carpenter. And everyone needs a customer. A good leader knows how to derive from each person a different thing. A good leader knows how to place each person in the optimal position for the individual's talent and ability. And when a person is in the right environment for him, which allows that person to express his talents, this is called success, and everyone benefits. Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft and one of the richest and most influential people in the world, explains 11 important and practical points for life. One of these points is that human beings are not equal. No matter how much the world tries to make us think that we are equal, men and women or otherwise, this is not true. God entrusted us with different gifts in different quantities. I like to call these gifts talents or abilities. Each of us has different abilities and also different qualities in each ability. Each of us has received a different amount of talents from above. One received 20, another received 10, 5, or 3. In the parable of the talents, which appears in Matthew 25, verse 14, a rich man went on a journey and deposited his fortune with 3 servants. Each of them received a different amount, and the freedom to do with that portion that he received as best as he could. When the master returned, he discovered that 2 of his servants were responsible and loyal. They actively invested the capital. They tried to the best of their ability to generate profit with whatever was given to them. What was the profits? The parable teaches us that every man, the profit is different, but the principle is similar. And it is to build each other, to build the kingdom of heaven. These servants thought to themselves, I know what is required of me, and I want to achieve these goals. But the 3rd servant chose the passive route. He said to his employer, I know that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and hid your gold in the ground. He's saying, I didn't do anything with it. I'm returning your deposit. The 3rd servant can be seen as a servant who has not used his talent. He didn't use his ability. He buried it in the ground and returned it to his master. We too will have to give account for the way in which we used everything entrusted in us. If we are found to be unfaithful, even what we have will be taken from us and given to others, to those who are faithful. Just like what happened to Korach. Once again, Korach was not just a common man. He was of a high standing. But once he stopped being loyal, he tried to exploit his status and wealth for harm, for rebellion. And at the end, he lost what he had, the large amount he had. Now, the hard part about the parable is undoubtedly the claim of the lazy slave, the one that did not do anything with what God gave him. I know that you are a hard man. There are several ways to understand this part. Today, I will try to interpret it in this way. For some reason, we think that worshiping God, believing in God, serving God, gives us as believers rights, that we will have it better, more comfortable, that we will have special protection. Sometimes this really happens, but sometimes it does not. And sometimes we actually suffer because of our service to God. Let's start from this basic fact. God created us. We're all His. He can do as He pleases. The fact that we serve Him is because we must. Not because there is a reward, but because it's our duty. And if we do not fulfill this duty, we will be thrown into darkness. The fact that God sometimes grants the faithful a reward, well, that's a bonus. Sometimes we have the idea in our mind, it's deeply rooted both in Judaism and Christianity, that God's servants are not harmed. During my military service in the Second Lebanon War in 2006, one of the greatest rabbis of northern Israel hosted our unit and cared for us until we went into Lebanon. But what is interesting is he gave everyone half a shekel coin, which we were obligated to give to charity after we returned from the war. What did he mean by this? That we are servants of God, being sent out, and therefore no evil will come to us until we come back and give the charity. That God's servants are not harmed. This is a nice idea, but it's not biblical, nor is it realistic. It's the same way with our way of thinking. We think that we can manipulate God. If I give up $200 of my salary, I will lack nothing. God will take care of my expenses. Oh, really? The Bible is full of bad things that happen to good people, prophets, priests, and leaders. One of the great prophets, Elijah the prophet who ascended into heaven, is the same prophet who suffered greatly here on this earth. Half of his time he's running away from King Achav, who wants to kill him. And if you think that he had fun running away, playing hide and seek, well, he didn't. Elijah begs God to kill him. Why am I telling you this? Because there is a verse in our parasha which is completely underappreciated. And we truly do not understand the depth of sacrifice that is embodied in this verse. So Aaron did as Moses said and ran into the midst of the assembly. The plague has already started among the people, but Aaron offered the incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. We read this verse and read on. But the same Aaron, whose 2 sons died, they were punished by fire from above, ran into the inferno. He ran into the punishment of God. He ran and stands between the living and the dead. If for a moment we think that Aaron was exempt and that he would not be hurt, we are incorrect. Aaron took an unusual risk. Most people would escape from the fire. Most people flee when bad things happen. The norm is that people do not run into danger. And here we see the essence of the heavy price of the leadership, which puts the people before the leader. And the leader loves the people, even if they sinned. And the leader is willing to endanger himself for the sake of the people. There is something to be learned from this act. We are part of these people. It's our duty to sacrifice, and yes, we might get hurt. We are required to sacrifice in the army service. We are required to sacrifice a great deal as parents and as believers in the community. Here I want to conclude with a story from the Gemara, a dilemma about a jug of water. If 2 people were walking on a desolate path and there was a jug of water in the possession of one of them, and the situation was such that if both drink from the jug, both will die, as there is not enough water. But if only one of them drinks, he will reach a settled area. There is a dispute as to the halacha. Ben Ptorah taught it is preferable that both of them drink and die, and let neither one of them see the death of the other. This was the accepted opinion until Rabbi Akiva came and taught that the verse states, "And your brother shall live with you," indicating that your life takes preference over the life of the other. There have been many commentaries on this story. In other words, why does Ben Ptorah say one thing and why does Rabbi Akiva say another thing? Now, there is a third alternative, which was not discussed. It is possible that the owner of the jug will be permitted or even asked to hand over the entire jug to his friend and die. In the third interpretation, the idea of self-sacrifice, we, as Messianic Jews, can and must add to the Israeli-Jewish discussion. The Apostle Paul explains to us the idea of self-sacrifice. I speak the truth in Christ. I am not lying. My conscience confirms it through the Holy Spirit. I have great sorrow and unceasing anguish in my heart, for I could wish that I myself were cursed and cut off from Christ for the sake of my people, those of my own race, the people of Israel. Theirs is the adoption to sonship. Theirs the divine glory, the covenants, the receiving of the law, the temple worship, and the promises. I see the spirit of sacrifice of the Apostle Paul, like Aaron's, who ran into the fire and with his body and with his courage stopped the plague. A day will come when we as believers we'll be called to the flag, and we will be those who run into the inferno in self-sacrifice for the sake of the physical people of Israel. And we will do so with the help of Yeshua, the Messiah, who lives in us. Please leave a verse in the comments below that you think sums up or adds to the discussion today. Shabbat Shalom.